needed extended effort. I am puzzled, for example, why so few large fecal piles have been reported along Sasquatch trails. One would expect many from a bulky vegetarian with only rare access to meat, as shown by gorillas and giant pandas. Jeff Meldrum is a scientist, an expert in human locomotor adaptations. In Sasquatch, Legend Meets Science, he examines all evidence critically, not to force a conclusion, but to establish a baseline of facts upon which further research can depend. His science is not submerged by opinion and dogmatic assumption. With objectivity and insight, he analyzes evidence from tracks, skin ridges on the soles of feet, film footage, and DNA, and he compares it to that on primates and various other species. He disentangles fact from anecdote, supposition, and wishful thinking, and concludes that the search for Yeti and Sasquatch is a valid scientific endeavor. By offering a critical scrutiny, Sasquatch does more for this field of investigation than all the past arguments and polemics of contesting experts. Humans stand alone, isolated monuments from a distant past. Perhaps we seek an evolutionary bridge to connect ourselves to something closer to us than the known great apes, to reveal more about how we became human. The apes offer only a distant glimpse. Possibly someday the Yeti, Sasquatch, or some other creature yet unnamed will help to disclose more about the splendor and wonder of our own creation. George B. Schaller. Introduction. Doug Hychek, nature film producer, took a break from shooting with his cameraman and wandered near the shoreline of Selwyn Lake, nearly 800 miles north of Winnipeg, on the border of Saskatchewan and Northwest Territories, Canada. In the Arctic to film giant lake trout, they had flown into this remote location in the early 1990s. Along the isolated beach, they encountered a crisp 17-inch footprint. The print was exceptionally clear and detailed and, excluding its enormous proportions, clearly human-like in form, with distinct toes and a broad rounded heel. Some 40 inches farther ahead was another similar footprint, followed by another, and so on, trailing alternately into the distance. This resembled no bear track. Besides, a polar bear hind paw measures only between 10 and 14 inches long. The hind paw of an Alaskan brown bear may reach a full 16 inches in length, but their range is generally restricted to the Pacific coastline. Grizzlies do range farther to the east, but their foot is only about 10 inches long. Could it be an extraordinarily large and out-of-the-way Alaskan brown, or an oversized grizzly fishing for giant salmon? Hychek weighed that possibility, but he was familiar with bear sign from extensive documentary filmmaking with Lynn Rogers, the man who walks with bears, and he knew that a bear track consists of a distinctive alternating pattern of hind and forepaw prints. The narrow interdigital pad of the forepaw is much abbreviated compared to the hind paw, to which is added an extended, distinctly tapering heel pad. Whatever animal had left these tracks was walking upright, on hind feet only, and had struck off from the lake shore in an apparently determined course with an impressive stride. Judging from the freshness of the tracks, it may even have been the film crew's arrival on the lake by float plane that sent it on its way. Hychek's curiosity was piqued, and together with his cameraman they followed the advancing line of footprints. For over a mile they traced the creature's enormous strides, before deciding that they didn't actually want to catch up to whatever behemoth had left the immense tracks clearly and deeply impressed in the frosty tundra soil. The men remained mystified over what could have been responsible for these prodigious footprints. They returned to the lake, thinking that they could readily follow the tracks from the air over the relatively treeless landscape and perhaps overtake the trackmaker. But the pilot of the float plane refused to talk about the tracks and rebuffed their suggestions to pursue them, and so they gave up on the idea. Hychek was unfamiliar with Sasquatch and therefore had no real concept of a giant upright ape upon which to hang the enigma of the footprints. The obvious and unavoidable fact that some unusual animal had made this impressive trackway continued to dog